Hi everybody, I'm Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. This week we're going to be talking about Social Squared, which is our discussion board or discussion forum tool for Microsoft SharePoint and also for Microsoft Teams. Before we begin, just give you a quick insight into Lightning Tools and who we are, and then we're going to jump into mostly live demonstrations of Social Squared from a beginner's perspective. So you'll be able to see if you have no knowledge so far of Social Squared, what the product is and what it can do for you in your organization. And then we're also going to focus on some brand new features, which we're going to be launching this month. So you'll be able to be amongst the first to see those new features. And towards the end of today's webinar as well, we're going to open up for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, you can either drop those into the chat window, or you can also put them into the Q&A window. I'll read those questions out and of course, hopefully provide you an answer for those questions. So just to give you that background on Lightning Tools, so we're a company, we're based in the UK. We've been established for coming for 17 years. And over those past 17 years, we've basically been building tools which comprise of web parts and standalone products that extend the capabilities of Microsoft SharePoint and also Microsoft Teams. So they include different areas such as permissions reporting and permissions management. This is something that is aimed towards site owners, site collection administrators, and SharePoint administrators, so they can review and modify permissions in bulk. We also have content aggregation as well in our tool set, so you can create reports on SharePoint list and library content, as well as Microsoft Graph content and search content as well. If you were around for one of our previous webinars this year, you will have also seen that has extended to also external connectors, so we can connect to things like Oracle and Salesforce and things like that, bring that content into SharePoint as well. So that's through our product, the Lightning Conductor. Of course, we're here today to talk about discussion boards. That's the one that's highlighted in here. And we also have some other data integration visualization products that connect to internal and external data, allow you to build charts and that sort of thing. And then we have a series of different products, or a suite of products that are around list form design. So you can create powerful modern or classic list forms, such as purchase order forms and things like that inside your organization. And there's list actions which give you the ability to add flow, if you like, to those lists without having to use Power Automate. Is something that you can use inside of your SharePoint lists. We have a document generator as well to generate Word documents from list items. And finally, also through a partnership with Kudzu, we also offer InfoPath Forms migration into Lightning Forms, our form design product. So this is our offering. Like I said, we've been offering that for the majority of those tools around 16, 17 years. We have our headquarters here in the UK, and we also have an office in Orlando, Florida as well. So today's agenda, what we're going to be talking about is Social Squared, our product. So this is the discussion board tool, as mentioned, and I'll give you some examples as to why you might want to use any form of discussion board inside of Microsoft SharePoint or Teams. And we'll also get into obviously the specifics as well of Social Squared, and that is, like I said, mostly going to be demo driven. So rather than just reading out from a PowerPoint slide, we'll be jumping into a live demonstration. You'll be able to see how to configure Social Squared from the ground up. And then we're also going to go through and create some content. And then, of course, I'm going to pull out the here's one I made earlier examples and show you one that has a lot more content in it. And that will enable us to be able to see things like searching, using tags to navigate the content, and that type of idea. And then we're going to jump into what's new. So you'll be able to see what's new inside this brand new version that we're going to be offering. And yeah, I won't spoil the surprises, but there's lots of exciting new things here that hopefully will benefit you. So if you are already familiar with Social Squared, hopefully you'll pick up some things as well as I do the demonstration of what Social Squared is already. And then you'll also learn from those new features too. And like I said, we'll have a Q&A on that. So just to jump into the benefits of discussion boards with inside your organization. So if you've used discussion boards before, you most likely have. You've probably used these out on the internet, at least, if not internally with inside of your organization, one of the most powerful things is when you're actually trying to find the answer to a question that you might have, and it could be about anything. It might be a user error that you're, or an error message that you're experiencing through some software. You could Google that or Bing that, and typically, if you don't find it in the vendor's software documentation, you're probably going to find that somebody else has experienced that same error, and they've actually provided suggestions as to how to overcome that error or what that error means. And you'll see that it's been verified perhaps as an answer by a moderator or somebody else that found that, yeah, that answer worked for them. So they've gone through and marked it as an answer. And that's really useful to anybody that is experiencing that same issue and, like I say, wanting to resolve their problem. So you get an entire community of people with different perspectives that are providing answers to the questions. It's not always that effort having to be driven from maybe just a small tech support department, but it's not always about tech support. It could be on any subject. It may be something that you've got as an experience or an issue with your vehicle, or you've got a question about a certain town that you're going to be visiting or anything like that. Usually you'll find a forum for it. So when we bring that into the business, of course, we've got the same sort of thing going on. We've got internal questions that people are asking, and those answers to those questions can not just help the person who created the topic in the first place, the person that needed an answer, but it would also go on to benefit anybody else that has similar questions that may not have even joined the company yet. So new starters being onboarded in 6 months' time, if they have a question about how do I do a certain thing inside of some software, or how do I raise a purchase order, or whatever it might be, they can hopefully find the answer to that question inside an internal forum. So over time, you end up building a knowledge base as well that is structured into different forum groups and forums. So if you're not familiar with that sort of structure of a discussion board, you may be thinking, well, surely I can do the same sort of thing inside of Teams or in email and so on. And yes, you can. You can, of course, ask questions in email. You can ask questions in person in the corridor, or you can ask questions inside the posts tab inside of Teams. The challenge comes when you're actually trying to find that information again. So, of course, we see the same questions being asked time and time and time again, whereas if it's actually inside a structured discussion board, hopefully people can come across those answers more easily using the search functionality and using the tags and so on. So that's basically what this is giving us. It's giving us that enhanced collaboration. It's giving us increased engagement as well. So if people can get the answers to their questions from different people, different perspectives, then they will do. And of course, it's given that ability to knowledge share as well. And of course, the flexibility of where you post these questions, where you find these answers. So through the Teams platform and through the SharePoint platform, and of course the mobile platform as well, we're always able to use Social Squared and gain the answers to those questions. So as I've already alluded to, Social Squared is something that can integrate into SharePoint and also Teams. It's available for SharePoint on premises as well as SharePoint online. It's structured discussion forums. If you don't know what I mean by that, you're going to see in just a second. We can basically categorize the types of conversations that people are going to be having, or categorize types of questions that people are going to be raising into different forum groups and forums. So the forum group is the outer category, if you like, and then we've got forums that are a second tier of categorization, and within inside that second tier is where people can create new topics, reply to other topics, and basically form that community to help other people inside the company. So that makes it easy to find the answers to the questions that you're looking for. We have also the ability to create moderators. So if there's subject matter experts inside your organization that would be able to provide answers more easily to people's questions and govern a forum as well, we can make them a moderator of one or more forums. So they don't have to be an administrator or a team owner or anything like that. We just create a new forum, we make them a moderator, and they can make sure that people don't go unanswered. We can have them edit posts that users create, or even move them to different forums where they're more likely to be replied to as well. And we've got that same functionality that you'll find on most forums on the internet, where you can see verified answers, you can see featured posts, and so on. And Perhaps the most convenient thing as well about Social Squared is the fact that this isn't your everyday sort of SaaS product where data is stored inside the cloud somewhere. All of this data that is input by your users in terms of questions and answers is all housed within inside your SharePoint environment inside of SharePoint lists that either belong to that team or belong to the SharePoint site that you're on. And of course, that extends to all the permissions, and the security as well is all driven through Microsoft 365 and your configuration. So let's jump in and take a look at Social Squared. So I'm just going to drop my camera here and we'll bring up my SharePoint environment first of all. I'm going to be jumping in and out of SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. So hopefully right now you're seeing SharePoint. And in here you can see that I've got an unconfigured instance of Social Squared. So this is just dropped onto a modern SharePoint page. It's been created inside a site, but hasn't yet been configured to give me any form of layout. No forum groups or forums. We're going to go in and create that. And what you'll see is I've got the same thing going on here inside of Teams. So this is actually the same team that belongs to this SharePoint site. This is the underlying SharePoint site for that team, if you like. So it started off with a SharePoint site, I then teamified it. And so within inside that Teams tab, we're going to get that same structure that I configure here inside of SharePoint as well. And ultimately, what we'd end up with is something looking like this. And this is the here's the one that I made earlier example. So this already has some content in it. We're going to jump into that a little bit later on. I'll show you how to search it, how to use the tags and that type of thing. So let's go through and create the structure first of all. So what you'll see right away, if you're already experienced with Social Squared, is that there's a slight change when you first add the web part. We've got a bit of help here, and we'll be talking about that in a bit more detail later. But you'll notice that we have a little animation that will sort of drive you through the product. So if you've never used it before, we can come in here and learn how to go in and actually create your different forum groups and so on, which is exactly what I'm going to do in just a moment. Yeah, if you've already used the product, you'll be familiar with that, but it's likely that there may be some people inside your organization that haven't yet used it, and therefore they can come in and figure out how to create that structure, and there's lots of good advice in there as to how to do that. We're going to go through and create our own, which I could do by hitting the create button here. Or if you're really stuck, you can actually just hit start, and that's going to create a new forum for you as well. If you know what you're doing, then what we can do is just jump into this menu in the top left-hand corner, and we can come down to the forum settings. And inside the forum settings, we can start off by creating the outer group. This is the forum group, and this is going to be a sort of technical support example. So perhaps inside our organization we don't have the resources to provide full-time tech support to all of our internal users, so we want to have a sort of community-driven tech support site. Then what we can do is actually go through and make sure that we've got the ability to answer anybody's hardware questions and anybody's software questions and so on. So we'll create a hardware and a software forum group, and then inside the hardware forum group we can go in and add some different forums. So what I'm going to add here is a desktop computer forum. So we'll create that, and we can add a description in here as well. So ask questions related to desktop computers. So we'll have that in there. And as I mentioned, we could also add a moderator. So if we happen to have a moderator that was very technical with desktop computers, we can add them in, and they've got that ability to, like I say, go in and modify people's posts if they need to. They can delete people's posts or maybe move them to other forums if they've been posted in the wrong place. So I'm going to add that one as a desktop computer, and we'll just go through and quickly create a few others. So we'll have laptop computer as well, and in here we'll have a description to say laptop computer questions. There we go. Let's just fix my typos as we go. I don't have to add a moderator, so I'm just going to leave that one without a moderator. And I'm also going to have a phone. So that could be the internal phone system, or it could be mobile phones, etc. And we can add a forum for that. So we've got our three forums that we need under hardware. And then I can navigate back, and under software, we can start to maybe add some forums for the different types of software inside our organization as well. So we'll have Word questions. Again, we could add a moderator for Microsoft Word, and we may have Excel as well, where we'll have Excel questions, etc. So that's the type of structure that we can create. I'm just going to do one more. That will be Windows. So it doesn't really matter what topic you're creating this on. It doesn't have to be technical, as mentioned. This could be supporting your HR department. It could be supporting sales or any specific products or services that your organization offers. So once we've got that created, we can go in and create some content. So let's just publish that site. So if I was coming in here as a user for the first time and I've got a question that I want to ask, I could go in and ask a Microsoft Word question. So we're inside the Word forum, and what I'm going to do is just go through and grab a quick question to save you see me type. I'm just going to copy and paste one of these. Okay, so we'll add a new topic in here, and I'm going to call this Microsoft Word question, which isn't really all that helpful so far. And we're going to paste in our word question in here. And what we can do to make this easier for people to find is tag it as well. So we're just going to put in Word, maybe Microsoft as well, and we could have like crashes and anything else that we want to use to describe this post. You'll notice in here that we've also got a full rich text toolbar, so we can do things like make things bold or highlight certain words and things like that. We can also drop in images, so maybe if we've got a screenshot that we want to include, we could drop that into the body of the message as well. We can also insert YouTube videos and motion icons and that sort of thing too. So once we're ready with that, we just hit add, and that will create our very first topic. And of course, we'll build up topics in here. So if I was to just simply go through and create topic 2, and we'll just give that a little bit of heading. There we are. We've got that being created as well. So we'll build up the topics, and of course you can set the pagination and whatnot for that one. Okay, so once we're then ready, we can have somebody come in and reply to this. So I'm actually just going to reply to myself here. So as I come into this post, maybe something that I was alerted to because I was following this forum, I could then hit the reply button, and we can paste in our response. So I'm just going to go through and hit reply there, and notice again I could reuse those tags and hit the reply button, and that's created the response to that. So if we were somebody using this, we're reading the forum, we could search it. So if I had a question that's separate to this one about Microsoft Word, just doing a search on the word word has found those or the post and the reply to that post, and we can see all the different highlighted words in there as well. Anything marked as a tag could also be included inside those search results, and you've also got the ability to refine based on date and time and that sort of thing too. Okay, so you can find that content by using that search feature. But what's going to make it useful for other people to know that this is perhaps a good answer is to mark it as answered. So that's something that the topic creator could do, or like I say, the moderator could do as well. So you'll notice a couple of things happen just there. I got a little answered icon that had appeared. So when somebody's reading through this post, they can see what the topic creator considered the answer to be, or what the moderator considered the answer to be. I also received a little badge. So the more I reply to people, the more I mark other people's posts as answered, the more points I'm going to get, and those points turn into badges. So that gives me some credibility as well when I'm going through and reading people's posts. Now, if this is a fairly lengthy discussion and I want to jump straight to the answer, what I can do is just hit show answered as well, and that is going to take me straight to anything that has been marked as answered, so we can go through and view that. There's also lots of ways of providing feedback to this discussion or people that created this this topic or reply as well. So we've got a rating that we can provide for the discussion. We've also got the ability to vote up and down the different replies. We have different emotion icons as well that we can use, and I think I did. Yes, and we've also got the ability to mark as a favorite as well. So if I wanted to find this more easily, there's a favorites view which I can jump into and get straight to that view there. Okay, so that's creating a topic and replying to it. Whilst I'm inside here, let's just have a look at some of the other features that you've got as well. So we've got the ability to delete the topic. So I can do that if I'm the topic creator and nobody's replied to me yet. I can also do that as a moderator or as a site owner or team owner. I could also, as the moderator, move the topic. So an example of that, in fact, is if I jump into this instance that we've already got, you'll notice that inside this instance, which has got more content in it, we've got a Teams forum group, a Planner forum group, programming languages forum group, and so on. And under Teams channels, that forum, somebody's asked a question about BitLocker. It says how to enable BitLocker on my laptop. So if we just go into that one, it's unlikely that anybody's going to answer that question inside the Teams channels forum, since it's completely irrelevant to the other posts that are inside there. So what I could do is just hit move topic, and we could say let's stick that under Windows. So I'll move the topic there, and now that particular topic is going to appear inside the Windows forum, and hopefully somebody will get around to answering that one shortly with inside that forum. Okay, so that's the move topic. We also have sticky. So if this is perhaps the most relevant post to do with Microsoft Word, we can make it sticky, and that could be sticky indefinitely just by hitting the sticky button, or we could say let's keep this sticky at the top of the forum for a week or a month or so, and or for a certain number of views as well. And you'll notice as we navigate back to that, it's got a little pin icon here marking it as sticky. If we've already got our answer as well, and people aren't really reading this thread and thinking about what they're doing before they're replying to the question again, we can just simply lock it. So people are wasting their time now by replying. The person's satisfied. We've locked the post, and it's there for read only now. So yeah, people are wasting less time. And we also have the ability to subscribe to different forums too. So this is a subscribe or unsubscribe to the actual discussion. So this is useful if I want to be notified when somebody replies to me, or if I'm interested in knowing the answer to this question and nobody has replied yet, I could simply subscribe to it and I'll get notified when somebody does reply. If, again, I'm the team owner, I can go in, or site owner, I can go in and subscribe other people as well. And that could be individuals, or it can also be users via groups if I choose to do so. All right, so that's creating different forum groups and forums inside a new SharePoint site, and we're going to move into the other example in a moment with more content in it. But let's just jump into the Teams example. So what you can do is actually add a new tab here in Teams. So you can choose Social Squared, add that onto your tab, which I've already done, and you'll notice as I reload this, because this is the team belonging to that same SharePoint site where I've just configured Social Squared, just refreshing Teams here, you're going to see that I've got that same layout. So we can go in and ask a question here about Excel. So I'm just going to put Excel question, blah, blah, and let's just post that. And what you'll see if I come back here into SharePoint and refresh that, of course, we've got that same content showing up because it's got the shared repository, which is the lists inside this SharePoint site here. So, of course, that's protected by the permissions and everything that you have set in place for this particular SharePoint site. So people can use their favorite tool. They can either use Teams if that's where they're in meetings all day long, or they can jump into SharePoint if they prefer to use that as well. Okay, so just to finish off the tour of Social Square before we look at the new features, let's just go into this other instance inside of Teams. So this is the one with a lot more content, and what you'll see here is the benefit of having that content to display the content in different views. So what you'll notice, first of all, I'm just going to go into the tag cloud here. There's all these different tags that I can use to navigate the content. Now those tags span all of the different forum groups and forums within inside this instance of Social Squared. So if somebody had used the word SharePoint inside the JavaScript forum, for example, as well as inside SharePoint on premises and SharePoint online, that's okay, because I can click onto SharePoint and I can see the different posts that may span all of those different forums and forum groups. And we can see in here what we've read and what we haven't read based on whether it's bold or not. We can see the average ratings coming through, whether it's answered, if it's a sticky post and things like that. And when we click into that, we can go through and, like I said, read it and so on. And just a nice thing to point out here, you'll notice that we've got things like quotes embedded in some of these replies. And if I was to reply to this post, I can see there's bullets in here, and I might just want to reference one of those bullets in my reply. So when I hit the reply button, what I'm going to do is just highlight this composites section here, and notice how that embeds that in my reply, and I can then put my reply to do with composites. There we go. So that's how we can pick out different things that we want to respond to, which is quite a useful feature. Or we can also just reply with quote, and that will embed the entire message that I'm replying to as well. Now, if I was to just jump back up here, you'll notice that some of these questions, there's a post here that says, where are the Social Squared lists stored in SharePoint? And I'm going to start to ask a similar question. So before I've even gotten past the first word, because I'm using the word where, it's suggesting another post to me. And that's the one that already exists. So if I've not done my homework, if I've not searched first for the content, and I just start creating a new post, if that was how do I reset my password, or how do I submit an expense claim, or something like that, it's most likely going to be picked up by Social Squared and a post suggested to you that you can just jump into and save you from that hassle of having to write your content, and readers the hassle from having to read duplicate content. Okay, so we've got that feature as well. The different views, this gives us the ability to view things like all unanswered topics. This is a great one if you are a subject matter expert, providing help to people, like inside that tech support example. We can go in and make sure that people are being replied to, and they have marked their replies as answered if they are answering them. We've also got active users as well. So we can come in here, see who the most active users are. We can search on a user's post. So if I did a search for demo user 5, for example, I can see all the different posts that demo user 5 has created. We can navigate to them. And if they're creating useful content, I can always click onto demo user 5 and decide to follow or unfollow that user, and that would notify me whenever that user posts as well. So there's some great views that help you to find the content either based on the user, based on the type of content. You can also follow the tags as well. So if I'm really an expert in SharePoint, what I could do is actually just follow that tag. So I don't have to even follow a specific forum. It's just if the tag of SharePoint is used, I'll get notified about that, and we can go in and read those posts. Okay, so that's kind of a quick tour of Social Squared. Let's jump in now to some of the new features. So these are some of the things that we're going to be launching this month. And the first one is integrating with ChatGPT. So we're looking at using ChatGPT in two different ways, which I'm about to show you. One is to summarize a post or a discussion, and the other one is to suggest a reply as well. Now, there may be concerns about implementing that in your organization. So we're going to have two separate instances of Social Squared. There's going to be the standard one that you perhaps know already, which is going to have everything beneath this point down. But there's also going to be Social Squared AI, which includes the ChatGPT functionality. This can use an endpoint that you specify, or it can just use standard ChatGPT. So if you wanted to have that just internal, you could do so. So I'm going to jump in and out of this slide, and we'll demonstrate each feature as we go through it. So first of all, let's get back into Teams here. Okay, and where were we? So under Windows, somebody's put how to enable BitLocker on my laptop. Now I might work in tech support and have no idea how to do this. So what I'm going to do is just hit reply, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT. So what we'll do is we'll just hit that ask ChatGPT button there, and you can see this is spinning, and here's the exact steps on how to enable BitLocker on my laptop. So I could have a read through that, try that out, maybe as tech support to verify it, because remember, not everything is true on ChatGPT. If I agree to this and I think, yep, this pretty much highlights the steps, what I can do is set that as the response. And notice how that embeds that reply now into my reply. And we can just add to that with some text, with some images, whatever we want to do. We could tag it. So let's just add BitLocker as a tag there, and we'll reply with it. Okay, so that's just been submitted for approval as well, because there's moderation going on that one. But that's where we can go through and use ChatGPT at that level to reply or suggest replies. So another example, if we go into this Microsoft Word question that was asked, this was a little bit lengthy, probably a bit lengthy than it needs to be to read through that one. So what I could also do is just hit summarize. So we'll ask ChatGPT to summarize this topic. And it's created a summary for me. Again, I can read that. And if we like it, we can set that as the topic summarization. So instead of having to read through 20 or 30 different replies and read this thread, we can get the gist as to what's going on just from this simple topic summarization there. So that's going to be helpful for when people come into here. They can just read that summary. And what we're also going to be implementing, it didn't quite make my demo environment yet, but as you hover over the subjects, in fact, sorry, it did make my demo environment. So as I hover over the topic, you can see here that topic summarization comes through. So I don't even have to open up the thread in order to see what this Microsoft Word question is all about. I can just get the gist of it from that speech bubble there. Okay, so that's integrating with ChatGPT to configure that, to set that up. This is something that we can get into the properties of the web part. And you'll notice here we've got this ChatGPT section where we're providing a ChatGPT key. This can also integrate with Power Automate as well to provide the ChatGPT functionality. And like I said, we're going to be releasing this to work with an Azure GPT environment too. Okay, so that is our first feature. I'll be really excited to know what everybody thinks to that one. So feel free to use the chat window. If this is something that you love or hate, then yeah, please provide that feedback, because that will be really relevant to us. So another one is adaptive cards. Sorry, realize I'm not showing my slides here. There we go. So adaptive cards in Outlook and the Teams Posts tab. So what that's referring to, let's just jump back here into our environment again. We'll use this example where there's already been a bit of content. And under the Teams channels, let's just go in and create a new topic. So I'm going to put Microsoft Teams, new version. So when is the new version of Teams released? And we'll add that as a topic. Okay, so to help people find this, what you'll notice is that you can have the replies to topics and new topics showing up under the posts tab. And if I just scroll up a ways, you should be able to see what Social Squared used to do. And that was just actually embed a little message like this when people replied to you and so on. And one of the problems that were faced by our clients was that people would actually just come in and reply here. So if I just put in my reply, they would submit that, and that doesn't make it to Social Squared. That's just showing up wherever that was that I posted it. So now you have the adaptive card show up. Now this is something that shows up inside of Teams. It also shows up inside an Outlook message as well. So we can message the poster if we just want to message them for whatever reason. We can also link out to the forum group. We can link out to the forum, and we can hit reply. So here where it says when is the version of Teams released, we can hit that reply button there. It's more obvious as to what to do. Notice how that takes me to the correct post, and we're now able to reply. And I'm just going to put imminently, maybe even spell it correctly, and then we'll just hit reply on that one. And there's my response. Okay, so much easier to integrate Social Squared with the rest of Teams and also with Outlook when you're using that. Again, thumbs up or thumbs down if you like that or not. It'd be great to get that feedback. So another new feature that we've got is more of a sort of tidying up. So we've got an improved settings layout, and you may have already picked up on this one if you are familiar with Social Squared already. So when we get into the settings, you can get into the settings through the web part by hitting the web part properties. So that brings up the property pane here, and we've also got the settings on the Social Squared tab here as well, showing up in a similar way. And we kept on adding new and more features to Social Squared, and it was actually getting a little bit hard for even me to go through and find some of those settings. Sometimes we'll be scrolling up and down, so they're just better organized. Nothing really too fancy about this one. We've got different sections where we can go through and navigate the settings, so it's very obvious, where we can go through and create badges, for example. We can select the badge icon, we can set our thresholds when people get awarded the badges, or we can turn badges off through there. Anything to do with file attachments, it's all in one place, likewise with tagging and so on. So that's the improvement that we've made. So documentation needs to catch up a little bit with this, but yeah, what you'll find is that yeah, it's much easier to navigate those settings and know where you're at. Following on from that one as well is the ability to import and export your configuration settings. So sometimes you may create an instance of Social Squared. You've got all of the settings exactly as you would want them, and then you go and add Social Squared to another web part. Sorry, to another site, or to another team, or even to a Teams channel, and you've lost the configuration. So you have to go through and reconfigure everything again. And this example that I have set up here is sorry, going to be a good demonstration for that. You'll notice that because I've got this added to Teams as well as to SharePoint, they've got the same repository, but to make things obvious, what I could do here is come in and change the badge icon. So I'm going to change this badge icon to the 6-point star. So that will be badge icon when I'm in SharePoint, but when I get into Teams, we've actually got the original default badge. So we want those to be the same. That's just one example. So what we could do is export the configuration. So simply export it here. You can see that that gets exported by JSON, and we can come into this instance and we can import. If I can see the right part of the screen. Anyway, you get the idea. We can import that configuration. That's going to load my import into this instance, and those badges or any other changes that I've made will be included. Also on those settings, we have now forum level settings. So one of the challenges before used to be that you would configure everything for one instance of Social Squared. So as we get into the settings here, if I decided perhaps under voting, for example, that we want to disable votes, I'm turning it off at that level for this entire instance. But what there could be is one particular forum inside of this instance that would benefit from voting, such as voting for new software for our CRM system. Whereas other forums, we don't want voting, we'd prefer to use the markers answer feature. So in that scenario, what we can now do, which we couldn't do before, is get into the forum settings. So we could go into, let's do what I said. So if we go into add a forum for CRM, so new CRM discussion, so people can discuss the benefits of different CRM platforms like Salesforce, HubSpot, and so on. And yeah, we could make sure that voting is enabled for that one. We could disable downvoting and so on, and then add that forum. So that way we would get the voting options enabled just for that one particular CRM forum, whereas we could shut it off for the rest of the Social Squared instance. So by default, the forums that we create are going to inherit from the instance settings, if you like, but we've got that ability to override those settings for each individual forum. So it makes it much more granular in order to be able to configure, and that further explains why you may want to also be able to import or export your configuration as well. Okay, and the final part to point out is the email digest. So what we have or have had in Social Squared for a long time is the ability to subscribe to either individual forums. So if I was an expert on Word, I could subscribe at the forum level here. So we've got that that ability to subscribe here. So anybody creating a new question under Microsoft Word, I'm going to be notified about. I can come in and reply to them. If it was just a specific discussion that I want to subscribe to, I can subscribe and unsubscribe to that. And then also through the settings here on the left-hand side, we can subscribe to different forum groups as well. Okay, so we can go through and save that, and I'll basically be subscribed to everything. That would generate an immediate notification, and you can configure those notifications to be email or Teams notifications. So you'll find under the notification settings, where it's nicely laid out, the ability to turn on or turn off those email and Teams notifications. So those settings are there, but we will get notified straight away. And if there's a very popular discussion going on inside a particular forum, we're perhaps going to start getting inundated with emails. So what you can now do is an email digest. Now that requires a bit of configuration, a bit of setup, but yeah, basically we can go through and subscribe with email digest, and that will then send me a digest email with a summary of what all of those discussions have been, rather than the immediate replies all the time. And you can configure exactly what that interval is going to be like and so on inside of the Power Automate 2. Okay, so pretty much that is the new features. So we hope to release that imminently. Just to talk about some of the common questions that come up. And I apologize if I'm going to steal anybody's thunder here. I've not looked at the chat window or the Q&A window, but hopefully there are some questions or feedback in there. Yeah, just to point out some of the questions that do come up. Number one question we always get is, where is the data stored? So the data is stored rather inside a SharePoint or a series of SharePoint lists that live inside the SharePoint site. So if you even just add Social Squared to Teams, of course that team has a underlying SharePoint site. That's where the lists get created. They're hidden, so users aren't going to come across them. And yeah, all of your posts and replies and configuration and everything is stored in there. So nothing leaves, not just your tenant, but it doesn't leave that site either. And that site is protected by the permissions that you put in place. And therefore, yeah, this is secure because it's secured by your multi-factor authentication that you set up inside your SharePoint and Teams environment. It's also secure in terms of permissions, so only people that are made members of that particular team or that particular SharePoint site will be able to access it. Can external users access the content? Yep, so you can treat your guest users, external users as users, so they can come in and post and reply to posts and so on as well. So the architecture of this is also, it's a SharePoint framework app. So very easy to deploy. It's basically deployed via the app catalog. So you can drop that into your SharePoint app catalog. You can push it out to the Teams app catalog as well. And there's just a few API permissions, of course, to go through and enable. And then, yeah, that's deployed tenant-wide. So users can then go through and add those web parts to SharePoint and also to the Teams. How does the licensing work? So this is licensed based on the number of SharePoint user licenses in your tenant. So it effectively, for the time being, is $1,000 for the base price and $1 per user per year after that. But the base price does include 50 users as well. So yeah, it's pretty affordable. So with that, I'm going to open up to see if there's any other questions that anybody's asked here. So at the moment, I just see one question. Look forward to speaking to you on our next webinar.